Why did the employee who kept the entire business alive finally snap? My bosses called me the problem guy, not because I liked solving problems, though I was good at it, but because I could fix any error in the spaghetti code that was our system and single-handedly kept our entire startup alive. The whole thing started when I answered a Craigslist ad my senior year. Need someone who codes was literally all it said. No requirements, just someone who could write basic JavaScript. The interview was in a garage with 3 Stanford MBAs who'd had an idea for revolutionizing peer-to-peer marketplace transactions, but had burned through 5 developers who kept quitting. Their codebase was a nightmare. React mixed with jQuery, no documentation, variable names like thing1 and stuff_new_final_final2. The previous developers had rage quit, leaving behind digital chaos. Can you fix this? Brad, the CEO, asked, showing me an error screen that had been crashing their site every 3 hours for a month. I fixed it in 40 minutes. They hired me on the spot. The first 6 months were actually beautiful. When I prevented our first major crash during an investor demo, they took me out for Korean BBQ. Brad raised a toast. To Daniel, the real MVP. Without him, we'd be nothing. Jessica, the CFO, literally cried when I recovered 3 months of data they thought was lost. Mike, the CTO who couldn't actually code, called me a genius in front of everyone. Word spread through the company that I could fix anything. Sales would text me directly when clients complained. Marketing would beg me to just quickly look at the analytics integration. Customer service had my personal cell for emergencies. I became the secret weapon they'd whisper about to investors. We have this guy who can solve literally any technical problem. By year 2, I was doing the work of an entire engineering team. My 40-hour weeks became 60, then 80, then 90. I'd deploy patches at 3 a.m., while Brad posted Instagram stories from Burning Man. I'd debug critical features during Thanksgiving while they flew to Turkey for a leadership retreat. I lived on energy drinks and gas station sushi, fixing problems from my phone at family gatherings. They kept me going with promises. Once we close Series A, you're getting equity, man. You're employee number 4, you'll be rich. That became after Series B for sure. Then, right before the C round, I promise. I believed them because I was 24 and stupid and thought hard work meant something. The equity promises became a running joke I wasn't in on. They'd introduce me to investors as Daniel, our little helper from community college, then frantically text me when the live demo crashed. At company parties, they'd tell the story of finding me like I was a stray dog they'd rescued. We gave him his first real job, Jessica would say, wine-drunk and condescending. He didn't even go to a real school, but the moment something broke, my phone would explode. Emergency! Daniel, please! The site is down. Fixing it is your only priority. I remember the exact moment everything changed. We were filing for IPO, and I asked Brad about my equity over Slack. He responded with a laughing emoji. You were never technically an employee, Daniel. You're a contractor. No equity for contractors, that's standard. The next day, they announced the IPO at an all-hands meeting. The company was valued at $500 million. My theoretical 1%, what they'd been promising for 3 years, would have been worth $5 million. Instead, they gave me a $500 bonus and threw a pizza party. Brad made a speech about how everyone contributed to our success while looking directly through me. That night, I opened my laptop and looked at the code I'd maintained for 3 years. Every function, every module, every critical system had my fingerprints on it, including the little time bombs I'd planted over the years. Not malicious, just insurance. Deadman switches I'd built during those 3 a.m. debugging sessions, commented with innocuous notes that looked like regular error handling. The NYSE opening bell ceremony was perfect. CNBC was there. TechCrunch had a live blog. Brad's parents flew in from Connecticut. He rang the bell at 9:30 a.m., confetti fell, champagne popped. The stock opened at $47. At 9:31, every function in our codebase simultaneously returned the same error. Equity not found. The site didn't just crash, it displayed that message on every page, every app screen, every API response. The stock price started dropping immediately. Investors panicked. The technical team, the new one they'd hired with real degrees, couldn't figure it out. They called me 17 times. I didn't answer. By market close, we'd lost $50 million in valuation. Brad was screaming on Bloomberg about cyber terrorism and sabotage. The board launched an investigation. That's when I sent the screenshots to every major tech journalist. 3 years of Slack messages. Just keep the code monkey thinking he'll get equity until IPO. Daniel actually thinks he's getting shares. He fixes everything for basically nothing. It's incredible. Thank God he's too stupid to know his worth. But my favorite was from Brad to Mike. I told him next quarter again. Bought us 3 more months of free labor. He's from community college. What's he gonna do? Sue us? I closed my laptop and waited. They knew where I lived. This was about to be fun. 3 sharp knocks hit my door at 2 p.m., and my whole body went cold. Through the peephole, I saw a guy in a bad suit holding a thick envelope, and I knew exactly what this was. I opened the door and he asked if I was Daniel, then handed me the papers without any drama. The stack was heavy in my hands, maybe 50 pages thick. I signed his little electronic pad, and he left without saying anything else. Back inside, my hands shook as I flipped through the lawsuit. Breach of contract, computer fraud, trade secret theft, and they wanted $50 million in damages. $50 million. From a guy living in a one-bedroom apartment eating ramen most nights. The legal words blurred together, but I caught phrases like malicious intent and coordinated attack and irreparable harm to shareholders. My laptop was still open from earlier, so I started searching for lawyers who knew about tech cases and CFAA charges. Most firms wanted $5,000 just for a consultation. I left voicemails at 3 places explaining my situation, trying to sound calm while my voice cracked. Within an hour, Conrad Donovan's office called me back. His assistant said he'd read about the IPO crash and could see me tomorrow morning at 9. I spent the whole night organizing everything, printing emails, making copies of code commits, creating timelines of every broken promise. My printer ran out of ink twice, and I had to run to the 24-hour CVS at midnight. The next morning, I showed up at Conrad's office with 2 banker's boxes full of documents. He was younger than I expected, maybe early 40s, wearing jeans and a button-down instead of a suit. I laid everything out on his conference table, the 3 years of false promises, the screenshots, the code I'd written with my little insurance policies buried inside. He took notes on a yellow legal pad, asking me to explain technical stuff in simple terms. When I showed him the Slack messages about keeping the code monkey working for free, his eyebrows went up, but he didn't say anything. After 2 hours of going through everything, Conrad leaned back and told me the real problem. The civil lawsuit was bad but survivable. The criminal charges under the Computer Fraud and Abuse Act could put me in actual prison. The FBI might get involved if Brad pushed hard enough with his cyber-terrorism claims. I could face 5 to 10 years if they proved I intentionally caused damage over $5,000, which losing $50 million in market value definitely qualified for. My phone buzzed while Conrad was explaining prison sentences, and I saw Angelica Crow's name on the screen. The TechCrunch reporter wanted to verify the Slack screenshots were real. She needed me to explain the metadata and prove I hadn't faked anything. Conrad nodded that I should take the call. Angelica was all business, asking about timestamps and email headers and how I'd preserved the chain of custody for the evidence. We set up a video call for that afternoon. The call with Angelica lasted 3 hours, and she grilled me on every single detail. She screen shared while I walked her through the Slack export files, showing her the message IDs and server timestamps that proved they were real. She asked about specific conversations, made me explain technical details about our codebase, wanted to know exact dates and times for everything. Her skepticism actually made me feel better because it meant she was taking this seriously, not just running with a juicy story. She asked about the insurance policies in the code, and I explained how they were just error handlers that would trigger under specific conditions, nothing actually malicious. After the call, Conrad's warnings about evidence preservation hit me hard. If the FBI got involved, they'd want every device I owned, every backup, every scrap of digital evidence. I spent the entire night creating encrypted copies of everything, backing up to external drives, uploading to secure cloud storage, documenting every single step I took. I changed all my passwords, enabled 2-factor on everything, even created a new email account just for legal stuff. My paranoia went into overdrive,